Good evening, everyone. It's Friday night. It's 8 o'clock, and it's time for another Monte Zone. With me, Monty Ban, and my co-host, G-Star.
Hi.
Good evening, G-Star.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Monty.
Good evening. And how the devil are you?
Yes, I am good.
Jolly good.
Intense research today. Intense,
yes. I have to say, it's been a rush to get everything together this evening. That's why we're running a little bit late.
Well, hello to everybody on chat. We've got Dan, and we've got Karen, and we've got Becky. So evening to all of them, and to Smiler as well.
My ever-suffering wrench. Good evening. Good evening to you all. Good evening to see you on the chat there, Dan. Thanks for joining us. And yes, good evening, Becky. Good evening, everyone. So the topic of this week's Monte Zone is conspiracy theories. We thought that would be an interesting
conspiracy theories.
I knew you were going to do that. Yeah, we thought after UFOs with Daniel 2 weeks ago that this would be a good next topic, and then hopefully we'll get Daniel back on in the next one to talk about the paranormal and ghosts. We haven't discussed that with Dan yet, but hopefully that'll be all right. I'm sure he'll say in chat. But yes, Smiler's loving your new mic there. So we're bringing four conspiracy theories to you this evening. Mainly the Illuminati. We're starting off with the Illuminati as our first topic. Yes, that's good with Daniel. He's up for the next Monte Zone, so that's good. The Illuminati is first up. Transitioning on to 9/11 and the conspiracies around 9/11, and then we go to the moon landings and where they faked, and we end with Michael Jackson and is he still alive? That's the four conspiracy theories for you tonight. Now, I will start off by saying I hope we're talking about conspiracy theories, and I know that YouTube doesn't like the topic of conspiracy theories, so I'm praying to the YouTube gods this evening that we're not ratioed or hidden from public eye, because I know sometimes if you're talking about topics that YouTube doesn't necessarily like, then yes, they can bring the YouTube hammer down on you. So that's my own little conspiracy theory there to start things off.
Well, maybe it is the Illuminati.
It could be.
YouTube.
Funnily enough, we've decided to do a thing about conspiracy theories today, and two things come up. One was this won't mean anything to you probably, but PewDiePie's diss track on Cocomelon has been taken off of YouTube. YouTube have banned it, deleted it, and copyright striked PewDiePie. Not copyright. I've forgotten what the term is, but they've given his channel a strike for it. So a lot of people are pointing towards that as being a bit of a conspiracy theory of YouTube against PewDiePie, because they don't like, as he's the sort of most successful individual YouTuber in the world, they don't like his sort of controversial nature. So there's that sort of conspiracy theory around YouTube's treatment of PewDiePie. So I thought it was quite funny that should come up in the last 24 hours as we're going to go talk about conspiracy theories. But there was that. And although not really to do with conspiracy theories per se, but because we're talking about space, NASA sent another probe to Mars, and it's successfully landed on the planet, and they've done a fantastic job at that. But I'm sure there are some flat earthers out there or somewhere that will say that that's all fake in a studio somewhere. So
I'm sure people are watching very carefully.
Very, very, very carefully. And hopefully we'll get some nice images back from that we'll be able to talk about in a future.
Yeah, some nice mysterious images of strange things. That would be good. New ones.
Yeah. Yes. So should we go straight into... Is there anything else you wanna mention before we...
No, I was just going to ask you, because we didn't discuss it off air, but I was going to ask you where you were going to talk about the Mars landing. So no, that's been nicely covered. That's fresh sort of news that relates to the Monte zone because of how we've covered Mars in the past. So that will fuel some subject matter for us to cover and go back to the subject. So that's cool. So I'm glad you brought it up. But I haven't got anything else from this week, at least.
No, that's good. That's all right then. And obviously, as normal, chat if you've got anything to add or anything you want us to talk about on the topic of conspiracy theories, then please join in and do your thing. That would be fantastic. So the first one I chose, so we had a little sort of pot of possible conspiracy theories, and we kind of like took it in turns and choosing what we wanted to talk about, and the first one I chose was the Illuminati, because I just thought it's that kind of thing that, when you see imagery and iconography of conspiracy theories, the sort of the Illuminati type stuff, the sort of things that are come to the front, and it's like the sort of most, the eye in the pyramid and all that sort of thing.
Up to about 2 hours ago, my knowledge on the subject was, very distinctly layman. I would have just, if somebody said to me, "What's the Illuminati?" I would have just said, "Oh, it's a secret group of powerful people." And the last sort of couple of hours, I've been watching a lot of stuff online about the Illuminati, and I would still say I'm a layman, but it was. I said to you before we came on air that I'm surprised you chose that subject, because it's a really, really difficult one, to cover. So, best of luck. Over to you.
Over to me. Thanks. Yeah. Well, I would say that all our subjects tonight are kind of like are going to be a brief overview. So, we're going to spend 15, 20 minutes or whatever it is talking about these things, and if we find them really interesting, we might in the future Monte Zone episode deep dive into some of these subject matters a bit deeper, like we do with the other topics, So we've covered a UFO episode, but that was in general terms, and we might pick up some key things and do more UFO episodes in the future. So it's like that. This is our first dipping our toes in the water, in the shallow end, I suppose you could say. So yes, the Illuminati. Yes.
We could call this Series 1. We get up to episode 10, and that's Series 1, and then we go on to Series 2, and we come back to the subjects.
Yeah. Yeah, the first series is always a bit dodgy, isn't it?
We were discussing that on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Finding our feet. We'll come back strong in season 2, though. We'll get professional crew and everything.
Multiple camera angles.
Things going off in the background. But everybody will forever watch these episodes and go, "Gosh, what in ropey."
Yeah. So, yes, the Illuminati. So, first off, it was actually a thing. So, it's not like some conspiracy theories where it's all in theory, that not necessarily imagination, but there's theories that match potential facts. The Illuminati is actually was actually a thing. It was founded in Bavaria in Germany in 1776 by a chap called Adam Welsh. I did look it up how to say it, but I can't. Welshout, I think Welshout.
I think it's
Wait,
Welsh.
Weishout. I don't know. Whatever. He's a German chap or Bavarian chap.
Bavarian.
Yeah, it was a professor of canon law for the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria, and basically he was in his university. He was persecuted by the clerical staff, and when I say clerical, I don't mean the admin workers.
Secretaries.
The university secretaries were.
You're talking about the Jesuits.
The Jesuits, yes, the clerics. They didn't like sort of the non-Jesuits, the non-believers, and especially around the area of canon law. So he was persecuted, and he got particularly fed up and started seeing them in pretty bad terms. He wanted to join the Freemasonry organization, but he found them to be too expensive, so decided to sort of create his own, and he did a pretty good job with that. But eventually, to get more reach, to get more followers, he did join the Freemasons and went quite high in the Freemasons organization. And as he got into the Freemasons, he learnt about their rituals, their ceremonies, the hierarchy, and the iconography, and sort of transposed that over to his Illuminati group. And it was doing quite well up until around the 1780s, when basically they got too big and too many people were loose-lipped about the group and what they were doing, and it became a known thing, and people started talking about it. And once it came out what it was and who the members were, important people started noticing that all the important roles in Bavaria were taken up by Illuminati people. And that, the Illuminati were looking after their friends and promoting people into, key strategic roles. And the, what was his name? I've got it written here somewhere. Charles Theodore, I think was like the prime minister or the head or the king, whoever it was, of the head of the area of the time, basically banned all secret societies in Bavaria from the 2nd of March 1782. And
I think he was the premier or something.
Premier, yeah, it's whatever. I didn't know what. Yeah, he was just the head honcho. He banned it from 2nd of March 1782, and that was it. The Illuminati were then disbanded. And that was it.
Like you said, he did a pretty good job. He got up to about 2,500 members, they speculate.
Yeah, which for that area, that was a.
If you've got a small area of Germany and you've got 2,500 people in a secret group, it's probably going to get out. Especially around in the times that we're talking about, where areas weren't heavily populated either.
Yeah, but this was the time of the Enlightenment, so this was a time when. Newton was hit on the head with an apple and come up with like the theory of not relativity, gravity.
That's Einstein.
Yeah, which Einstein took those ideas further, but and very much this Adam Welshout, or I'll say his name. He was very much into the Enlightenment movement and that sort of progressive thoughts.
Being open-minded and going against the teachings of religion that were very secular and wouldn't allow for science to breathe. And so, when I was reading about it, I could see kind of why you had chosen this subject, because their motives in the very beginning are very likened to like something that I would see you gravitate towards, in terms of that, they were more about moving away from religion and trying to explore science and reason and logic and being enlightened, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and very much separating church and state, trying to divorce those church powers from state. Because you got to remember as well that Bavaria at the time was considered the Holy Roman Empire. It was what was left of the Holy Roman Empire, so it was still very much controlled by the church, and these progressive thinkers just didn't like that very much.
Yeah, we've got Chris from KD Fitness on chat, who's started asking his usual strange questions.
Yeah, it could have been a member of the Illuminati throwing apples.
Sat in the tree and threw it on his head.
Yeah, he's starting his own conspiracy theories there. Is Luda. Yeah, and so what else? It seemingly disappeared. Those thoughts of the Enlightenment and everything that they stood for continued on and led to things like the French Revolution and lots of other advancements. So there's lots of people, and I think the first book that was written about it was in 1804 or something, where people think that rather than be disbanded, it just pushed the Illuminati more underground, that they learnt their lessons from that experience and become even more secretive.
Well, yeah, I guess it's from after that point that it then becomes a bit of a conspiracy as to whether they really exist or not, because it's obviously gone that secretive if they do that, Because
it's really, these conspiracy theories are thought to be primarily based in America, and they came to the fore as a part of the sort of New World Order conspiracy of the late 70s and early 80s, with right-wing Americans. But actually, there was a number of books and writing throughout the last couple of hundred years where people have theorized that they were behind the French Revolution and various other things.
And they were behind, potentially, one of the theories is that they were behind the independence of America and the writing of the, is it not the Constitution of Rights? I can't remember what it was, but because the group of people that signed that document, like George Washington, they're suspected of being part of the Illuminati as well. So and it was sort of right around the time.
Yeah, and because it shares a lot of the iconography with Freemasonry. There's a lot of that in and around Washington, isn't there? And like the
Karen.
eye in the pyramid on the banknotes and things like that.
Yeah, Karen's just helped us out and said it's Declaration of Independence.
Yeah,
should have remembered that from that treasure hunt movie with what's his face in it.
There's a document written by George Washington that's held in a museum. Is it actually where he talks about the Illuminati? Are you gonna mention about the misconception on the all-seeing eye? No, I haven't looked that. I haven't read that one. You can give me
Oh,
that.
so we've got it in the backdrop actually, but especially in I can't remember the actor's name, the American actor that's in the film's Treasure Hunt.
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage, yeah.
National Treasure.
National Treasure. So there's quite a few movies that have been kicking about over the last few decades, and there's this big theory that the all-seeing eye, which you find on the American $1, is like symbolic with the Illuminati in terms of that all-seeing eye, but actually it's got no connection really to the Illuminati. It more comes from, if it's going to be connected to anybody, it actually comes from the Freemasons.
Yeah.
The symbol that the Illuminati supposedly used was an owl with Minerva, or a Greek goddess. So it wasn't the all-seeing eye, which is, if you watch National Treasure and stuff, they kind of make that comparison to it being the Illuminati, which is a little bit historically incorrect.
Yeah. But I mean, they did use a lot of it. They were intertwined when they existed, so I can see how
Yeah.
the conception gets taken forward. Um, so yeah, and it's gotten wrapped up with the idea of the New World Order. So people have taken those Enlightenment thoughts forward and think that you know the world won't be a proper civilized place until we come under one, one organization,
Unified.
one unified authoritarian state that works for the good of the people, all people on the planet, and borders are dissolved and those sort of things, and that's the sort of New World Order take on it. And it's kind of an extension. It's a carrying forward of those sort of original ideas in a way, and that was popularized in the 80s by right wing Americans and what do you call it? Religious, highly religious, like American conservatives, end timers, those that are prepping for the end of times, and they really believed in this New World Order as the sort of the left's answer to their beliefs. So that's where it started. But as time's gone on from those 80s to now, it's kind of grown and evolved. And some of it makes some sense when you read some of these things, because we're now thinking that we're seeing the impact that the human race is having on the planet, and the fact that we live in what is like effectively a closed system with finite amount of resources and all the things that we need to survive as humans and grow our industries and economies and things. That really the future will only work if there is a central control over it, and we start working to make these resources work for us, for humanity, for the future, and that will only be done through a sort of new world order. So,
God, they must have hated Brexit then.
Yeah.
Us going, we can't be part of Europe. No. Small area of the world.
Well, that's why you have like right-wing policies which are very much isolationists, and Trump building his walls and things like that, which is another strategy. It's another way to go. Defend what you have. Where you have the more right-wing socialist movement, where we all should be banding together for the good of everyone, and one can see the other one as a conspiracy theory, because the left generally have on their side the leaders of the tech companies, the leaders of the media companies, actors, pop stars.
Yeah,
all
Beyonce,
the movers and shakers of the world.
Jay-Z,
Beyonce, Jay-Z, Rihanna, all those people that have been linked with the Illuminati and the New World Order. It's quite funny reading some of that. But you can see, and there is a thing called the Bilderberg meeting. I don't know if you read about this, but
no.
There's a yearly meeting that takes place called the Bilderberg meeting, which was first hosted in the Bilderberg Hotel. I've forgotten what country it was. Someone probably tell me in chat at some point. But it's been running for around 60 odd. It's like started in 1950 or 1958 or something. Anyway, on 2019, the 2021 was cancelled because of COVID, but the last one in 2019 took place in Montreal in Switzerland, and had 130 participants from 23 countries. And basically, the whole point of the Bilderberg meeting is representatives from industry, from media, from politics, from all the sort of high-profile Western nations that are sort of joined together to make, control everything, get together and hash some things out. So, just showing you what in 2019 this was the what they discussed. Okay, there's 11 points they discussed. First off, a stable strategic order. What next for Europe? Climate change and sustainability. China. Russia. The future of capitalism. Brexit. The ethics of artificial intelligence. The weaponization of social media. The importance of space and cyber threats. And when you look at the people that go, they're prime ministers, secretaries of state, the head of Microsoft, the head of Google.
I don't know where my invite went.
No.
But I did go to the Build-A-Bear meeting.
The Build-A-Bear, yeah, very good.
The subject matter wasn't that interesting, but
Yeah. But what makes this, what triggers people with this is that it's completely obscured from us, the public. No documents come out of it. Nothing's documented. The whole thing is specifically secret. You're not allowed to know what they discussed. They tell you who goes and they tell you what they're talking about, but it's completely black room. They won't discuss anything. So they say that's to enable people to go and have frank and open conversations to really hash things out. And if they felt that what they say will be quoted and spread in the media, then people won't say the things that need to be said. But then at the same time, if you get all the most important people in the world in a room together and they can all talk about these subjects without anything being attributed or documented, then what does get said and why?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to be a fly on the wall for that one. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the head of...
you know what we need to do? We need to go and put secret cameras in every single large conference room in the world, because we don't know where they'll have the next meeting.
No.
But then if we did it in every single one, we'd be covered and we could film it and then sell it.
Yeah. But like representatives of every major university in the US go. I said the head of GCHQ goes. The head of the Bank of England goes.
Yeah, a couple of Smiler and Karen have put a couple of bits in chat. Karen saying you have to be invited to the group.
Yeah, they go as individuals. Yeah, because I'm sure the head of Google, the head of the Alphabet company, really just goes there as an individual. Yeah, all right. But Henry Kissinger, he went.
I bet you, what's his name, who heads up Facebook, probably goes as well.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah, that's it.
No, I don't think they invite him because he's an alien. So,
well, as Karen says, you have to be invited. I wonder what she means by the group. Like, you have to be invited by the group. But then it does automatically. What you're saying sounds very elitist, very, closed off, and obviously got all the more influential, powerful people in the world. So it sounds a bit like the original format, doesn't it? Really. Yeah. Especially if it's not allowed to be filmed or documented, or it's just a little bit more open that they're not hiding the fact that they are having the meeting.
No, and you are they are invited each time, but there is a board, like there's like an owning committee. But who do they report to? What is done with this? I don't. It's also cloak and daggers-y, but it is kind of like the Illuminati theory in action, isn't it?
We'll just put it out on the airwaves now that we would here at the Monte Zone, we would appreciate an invite to the next one, and we've got some very good valid points to share.
Yes, yeah. So that's pretty much it, really. That's all I had on the
Well, I was just going to say, because I don't know if you sort of picked this up in your research, but when I started looking at it, when you get the description and the background from the very beginning, it kind of sounds like, there's as we were talking about earlier on, there's this concept of being enlightened and embracing like new progressive scientific thoughts, etc. And it all sounded quite positive. I was liking what I was hearing and reading. And in the last sort of few decades, the whole concept of Illuminati has become sort of twisted and a lot more evil. Like they're meant to be this like world order that like are all powerful and will control everybody and control what happens in the world. And you know, even some of the stuff that if you go on sort of like the likes of YouTube or Google now, you get a lot of stuff where it's like Illuminati, satanic messages, and apparently songs by Beyonce and stuff like that. If you play certain parts of them backwards, say satanic messages, and it's all connected to the Illuminati, it's all become quite insidious, really, as a concept. So it's really weird how it's had that evolution of, you know, because as I said, when I started finding out about the original and where it originally came from, it all sounded quite positive and you know, kind of quite good, and then it sort of seems to have fizzled into something that's quite insidious.
I think it was in 2018 or something, in the Grammys, and all those artists, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, and they after they accepted their awards, they all made that sign, which was supposedly, like people were saying, was the Illuminati triangle, you know.
I just think they were trying to do that and they kind of messed up.
Messed it up. They got it upside down.
They were trying to go, love you.
Love you, upside down.
I mean, you know, it's all got a bit silly, and some of it is quite silly because they reckon that Katy Perry's in it because in one of her videos she uses an eye, like an Egyptian eye, and she holds it up, and yeah, it does verge on the ludicrous, some of it.
Yeah. I read somewhere that, or I watched somewhere where they just said the real conspiracy theory is they've all got E's in their names.
Yes,
but not the letter E.
Not the letter, the sound.
The sound, because you got Jay-Z, Katy Perry, Beyonce,
yeah,
Lady Gaga. Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Going back to the whole thing, and you know, when you go to do that, like sometimes you do that first, so maybe they just caught them when they're doing that and stopped it before they got to that. So
I don't know.
Yeah, it's all good. Silly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hello, Jim Bob. We got Jim Bob Gamer there. He's a lad that I play Fortnite with. So thank you for coming and joining us.
Hi, Jim Bob.
Right, so that was conspiracy number 1 down. I don't think we haven't covered any. Nobody's asked any questions that we didn't answer or anything. No. Yes, Deckard. Yes, well done, Karen. Deckard Shaw is his name in Fortnite. But yes, hello, Deckard or Jim Bob. I don't know which one to call you, but yeah. Yeah, so moving on to conspiracy theory number 2.
And that would be 9/11 and who was behind it. And yes, all the many, many, many conspiracies. I mean, it's a huge subject matter, as Monte was saying earlier on in the show. There's a few of these where we could make a show out of it just alone. And this is obviously one of those. You know, there's a huge amount of different varying conspiracies around 9/11. But so I'm not going to cover them all tonight, but going to just kind of draft over some of the main ones. It's worth saying that, you know, there's a lot of overriding sort of similarities between 9/11 and the conspiracies and that of, you know, the assassination of JFK. And, you know, one of the things with the JFK incident is that there was the Warren Commission report. Now, following 9/11, there was a 9/11 Commission report. And, you know, it's worth by starting off by saying that that report was a lot better and a lot more credible than the Warren Commission, because the Warren Commission had information in it which was really unrealistic, like the magic bullet, and sort of went against physics and was all a little bit ridiculous and you know, against sort of known science. Whereas the 9/11 Commission report is, you know, a lot more credible. However, there's a lot of stuff that they proposed in that commission report, which since then has been nitpicked by conspiracy theorists, and they've presented a more scientific approach to it. I'll come to that in a minute. But something that's not happened in a lot of these cases is that the 9/11 Commission have gone back to challenge those points, or be a little bit more open to kind of trying to explain their findings in a little bit more detail. But anyway, so the two main things that are the biggest thing, because there is a kind of group of people out there that I can't remember what they call themselves. They're the 9/11 Truth Committee or something like that, which they are very loud online about. They don't like a lot of the other smaller conspiracies around 9/11. So things like, there's some ridiculous theories around 9/11 that the planes were holographic and they weren't actually really planes, and that they were missiles and things like this. So
wow.
There's various different theories, and I'll go on to one in a minute, which is slightly a little bit more serious and got a lot more hard evidence to sort of debunk it. But again, it's one that they don't really want to talk about, and that's about the Pentagon and the Pentagon being a missile. But the two main kind of conspiracies around 9/11 are the towers and how they collapsed. So, and then the other one for me really is the Bin Laden tapes. That's another key point. So I'm going to cover those, and I'll cover a little bit about the Pentagon incident and Flight 93 as well. So the plane crashes and results in a fire caused the collapse of the World Trade Center. Now, the controlled demolition conspiracy theories say that the collapse of the North Tower and the South Tower, or the 7 World Trade Center, which eventually later fell, was caused by explosives installed in the buildings in advance. So we're going to go to a video now, which basically I just want to play. This is, so just to give a bit of an overview of this video, this is a sequence of different journalists, news journalists that were in New York on the days that followed the 9/11 incident, and interviewing people that had been on the ground, near the World Trade Centers when the incident happened. And we're just going to listen to some of the interviews and what those guys are saying, because this is another really key point, because there was a lot of people that were interviewed that were on the ground, people that were members of the public, people that were police officers, and their statements weren't included in the 9/11 Commission report, and that begs a lot of questions. So we're just going to watch this first video and just watch a few of the interviews with members of the public to just get a sort of bit of a feeling as to what people in New York were saying. If Monte can line it up.
I think it's this one. Is this?
Yep, that's correct.
The ladies that are with me were in the World Trade Center in the first building and escaped through the lobby, where they report they believe there was a bomb in the lobby.
And even the turnstile was burnt and was sticking up, and they just told us to run. And as we were coming out, we passed the lobby. There was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds then the first plane hit.
Yes. They were having coffee in the World Trade Center when the first plane struck.
And all of a sudden it sounded like, I don't know where the subway is, but it sounded like a subway collision, a bomb. And it was just pounding, boom, boom, boom. And I literally thought the subway had exploded and all the cars pitching around on top of it. It was so loud.
And
Did you see what happened? What happened?
Well, I was in the past train, and there was a huge explosion sound. Everyone came out.
Tell us what you saw when you exited the subway station due to a lack of smoke. Eileen.
It was very smoky, and then we exited on Church Street out of the past train station.
At the time, I was actually in the subway heading towards the World Trade Center right around Franklin Street, and after the first explosion, the subway station started to fill with smoke. The subway cars started to fill with smoke, and the subways actually stopped.
I was entering the building.
So that's probably enough.
Pause that there, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, just to sort of kind of give an overview of what these people are talking about, is that this is all before the buildings actually fell and collapsed. And there was already smoke and explosions and tremors being heard from people that were on the ground or in the underground in New York. And again, this wasn't after the Trade Center and the two buildings had collapsed. This was before they had collapsed. So it sort of lends quite well to this concept that it wasn't the planes, and their collision into the upper levels of the building that caused the buildings to fall, that there was explosions further in the base of the building, very much like a demolition. So demolition theory proponents such as Brigham Young University physicist Stephen E. Jones and architect Richard Gage, software engineer Jim Hoffman, and theologian David Ray Griffin argue that the aircraft impacts and the resulting fires could not have weakened the building sufficiently to initiate a catastrophic collapse, and that the buildings would have not collapsed completely, nor at the speeds that they did, without additional factors weakening the structures. Now, another thing that's really important about the 9/11 Commission is that later down the line, in the months that followed on the clear up of the World Trade Centers, they found what was called thermite, or traces of thermite and nanothermite in the dust and the debris. And thermite and nanothermite is part of a demolition explosive component. It's a high level explosive. Now, there's obviously, people in the 9/11 Commission report that basically refute this and say that actually there's airline fuel, when it burns, it can get up to such a high temperature, and that it would have released into and dropped down through the building, and that it could have been hot enough to melt the metal structure into the structures of the building. Because the other thing that was found in the debris is that the metal support structures of the main buildings were actually melted to a point, and obviously they require a certain temperature to be able to melt that steel. And what they were made of, was it made of steel? I just saw a look on your face and that said it.
No, it was steel. No, it was steel. Yeah, it was definitely steel.
So there's a lot of things that lead towards the fact that it was a planned demolition. It wasn't, the buildings didn't fall as a result of the planes crashing into them. But again, there's a lot of experts that are on a part of that 9/11 Commission report that do explain or make very good relevant explanation as to why that could have happened in this situation. But again, just given all sides of the argument, since 9/11, there's actually been a couple of buildings that have been hit by planes, whether that be through accident or by terrorists, and they haven't collapsed. They've been hit in the same way as the trade centers were hit, and they didn't collapse. So this is why this is in the whole subject of 9/11 conspiracy theories. This is the big one, and this is the one that's got the more scientific backup to say that there's real evidence to it. But just for a bit of fun, I had shared another video with you, which was just some live footage from some people that were, judging by the video, they were probably a good few miles out from the center of New York and where the World Trade Centers was. But you can hear them talking on camera, and the footage is, we're going to play it from before the towers fell, and then you can hear what they're saying as the towers fell.
If I've got it right. Just quickly, whilst I'm just trying to find that and sort that out, well, you might have just covered this, but I just want to check. What did they think the explosions were then, that everyone heard coming from the basement?
Well, that's where they feel that it was explosives that were planted there before, and as part of the whole setup, because the whole big conspiracy is that it was.
No, I mean the official line.
The official line is that they're saying that the way in which the buildings collapsed, that they've got no explanation.
There's no explanation. They haven't said, what you're hearing is something cracked.
In the report, they don't even
address it at all.
Acknowledge it. No.
Okay.
They say that the buildings fell because the fuel from the planes would have escaped out and started dripping down through the building, through like lift shafts, etc., and set off fires and separate explosions, which then caused the collapse of the building, which, nobody can disprove that. But it is, from a scientific point of view, quite far-fetched, because
Is it this one? I think it's this. Was it this one?
Yeah, it was this one, and it was to play from this point till about 2:20.
So right at 9 o'clock when people are at work.
Have you got the volume up?
Yeah, it was like the first one was at like 10 to 9.
Oh, I might not have put volume on it. Hang on, let me just check.
We need to hear the voices because we need to hear what they're saying.
Technical problem. I didn't click the share volume button. There we go. My bad. You can't click the play button on the StreamYard view of it. That doesn't work.
I walked by, I was walking by.
Okay.
They both hit like something's coming out.
So that was the back building disintegrating, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the first one. And you hear the lady who's talking in a minute, and she says, like, I don't understand how that building just fell because the plane hit it at the top. Like, what?
Oh my God, look at that explosion.
All eyes looked towards the sky. It was the most surreal scene I have ever seen. I cannot describe what took place. The building literally just like as if it was in slow
Look at all that explosion going up the whole downtown.
Manhattan, sending up a humongous cloud filled with debris.
Is that going to come this way?
Started running from lower Manhattan.
That's good.
So what should we do?
I don't think it'll reach this far.
Well, even if
I mean, they could be just talking about the massive, the way the
No,
the
she's
cloud.
just saying it there. You're just talking over it.
Did I? Oh, sorry. Hang on, let me go back.
That plane, a giant 747.
No, you just missed it again. It's just a little bit. It's about 156 you need.
Oh God.
Sorry.
even if it does, I don't know what we would do.
That's probably what they tried to do.
Why did the whole thing collapse? They must have done something.
That plane, a giant 747.
So she says, why did that whole thing collapse? They must
Yeah.
have done something.
But I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we all think, being non-experts, isn't it? It just visually, it doesn't look like it makes sense, does it?
Yeah. But then that coupled with the fact that you've got people that were closer on the ground and people that were actually in the building that, you know, have gone on camera and instantly said, well, you know, the lobby was already blown away and that had actually already exploded and you know, they heard explosions, you know, from the lower part of the ground. There was smoke in the subway, and this is before any of the buildings started to collapse. That with explosive particles being found in the debris, there's a lot of evidence that sort of leans towards the fact that there was a second component that made the World Trade Center's collapse. So that's one. So if you've got any more questions about that one, put it in chat, or if you've got your own point of view, let me know what you think from what we've covered so far. So going on to the Pentagon then, because at the same time that the World Trade Centers were hit by airplanes, it's believed that the Pentagon was also hit by a hijacked plane, the American Airlines Flight 77. But there's a lot of conspiracy that actually wasn't a plane. It was actually a missile that hit the Pentagon. So just going to read you a bit of stuff here. So instead, they argue that the Pentagon was hit by a missile launched by elements from inside the US government. Some claim that the holes in the Pentagon walls are far too small to be made by a Boeing 757. And then there's a lot of, so I've given you some photographs. It's really questionable because there wasn't a lot of wreckage that was found of a plane that hit the Pentagon. Now, you know, going on both sides of the wall, there were eyewitnesses that say that they were there, right there, when the plane hit the Pentagon and say it was a plane. The other thing that's very curious about the Flight 77 that hit the Pentagon is it hit an area of the Pentagon that was actually vacant at the time because it was going under having renovation. So it was a section of a section of the Pentagon that was abandoned and was vacant at the time. So there wasn't really any tragedy in terms of loss of life from the incident with the Pentagon. What's Daniel just said there? I remember where I was. I was in sixth form at school, sat in the common room. I was in Exmouth on my lunch break from where I worked in Witherspoon's pub. was on a 12-hour shift, and I was on my lunch break as it was breaking news. So I remember where I was.
Smiler and myself, we were at Becky Falls up on the moors. And we were just going to go to Rodeford Reservoir for a walk around Rodeford. But when we heard the news, we decided to come home instead.
Yeah, I think everybody if you were alive back then, I think everybody remembers where you were, just because there was.
Yeah.
I mean, again, in that video that we were playing just a minute ago, one of the guys in the video later on goes to say, his comment is, "There's going to be a war. There's going to be a war." And I can remember thinking, "Oh my God, will this start a nuclear war now? Like, what's going to happen?" And so, yeah, I don't think a lot of people forget where they were.
No, right.
So the first thing that now that you've got the photograph up, we might as well talk about it. So this came off of, these pictures, and I've got a bit of video as well, and these actually come from, the video comes from an actual Pentagon security camera. I don't know exactly the source of this photo, but I know that I pulled it off of Wikipedia. But I just thought it was interesting because, it was a Boeing 757 that crashed into the Pentagon, and that wreckage that's like conveniently placed there just doesn't look like it's thick enough or substantial enough to be part of a Boeing 757. But I'm not an airplane expert, but it just looked like it was more from a small private plane or something. It doesn't really look like it's from a big commercial plane.
It did look strange because I remember looking at it afterwards, and there's nothing else there. It's just like, it's just, you'd expect to have seen. I mean, there just wasn't much. There wasn't anything left.
No. So I mean, to make life easier, I don't know if it's easier just to go on to the other picture that I shared, because the other one that I shared for the Pentagon is a bit of video. So yeah, and it just goes to show, like, when you look at the level of damage. So this was the section of the Pentagon that, as I said, was under renovation. So didn't have anybody in there. So that's pretty convenient in terms of low damage, but heavy sort of moral, social impacts and the shock of everything. But even the kind of level of destruction that was supposedly caused by a Boeing 757 hitting it at 1,500 miles an hour is pretty minimal from what you can see in the pictures as well. And that's what they're saying, these experts are saying, is that the damage, because there's a pressure group called Judicial Watch from the Freedom of Information Act, and they had put the pressure on for the US government to release footage and photos from the Pentagon's incident. And some of those security camera footage is what I'm going to show you now, or in a minute, that I've shared with Monte. But
is that this bit?
Yeah. So
hang on. Wait up. Whoa boy. Let's get him over here.
So just before you play this, there's some, as I said, some experts, and they come from a group called the Judicial Watch, and they've analysed a lot of the footage that's come from the Pentagon security cameras. And what they say is that if you slow the footage down, which we can't do with this footage, and it's not greatest quality either, but what you see is a white blob or a white streak, but it's very, very fast, and probably a lot faster and a lot smaller than what you would imagine to be from a commercial Boeing 747, and more likened to that of a missile. But if you play the footage, I think it was around 125 in the time index, because there's a lot of nothing for a long time. So
What one?
125, I think it was around that time index. Yeah, just about here. And it's just about, and you can't literally, 1 minute you see the building, and then the next minute you see an explosion happening. You don't actually see the plane. I don't know if you're playing it or...
Yeah. Oh, you just see the nose. You just see the nose of it. There. You can just make it out. But
yeah, whether it hit the ground before it actually hit the building,
I don't think so, because when you look at it afterwards, there's no marks on the ground at all.
But this, just so to explain, this isn't from a bystander. This is from the Pentagon security cameras.
Yeah.
But again, it's, you don't really get to fully see a plane hitting the building. But I just thought I'd share that. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
So what does everybody think about the Pentagon? Because we've got some of the guys giving their opinions. So Kaz thought that when she first watched it, that there was something in her instinct that said it was staged. Smiler agreed and said that she thought it was staged.
It's like all of these things. It just looks very odd.
Yeah. And there's another good point.
Part of that is, I hate to be the sensible person in the room, but we've never seen anything like this. That's a part of the reason why it looks very odd to us. And, it's not... We're used to seeing things like special effects. If we see things like this, it's like a special effect on a movie. And then when you see it, it's like when you see someone get shot in the movies compared to if you saw someone get shot in real life. It doesn't look the same. And the real life one almost looks fake because it's like, oh, nothing really happened. And the person still stood up, but it's just because it doesn't necessarily act in the same way as it does in film. And I think some of this, it's just, we've never seen anything like any of these things before. And our brain struggles to cope with it,
Yeah, and again, just going to something that Smiler said in the comment about she's read a report saying that people have said that they were asked to evacuate even before the plane hit. And again, there's witness statements to that fact. And again, there's so many sub theories that we could discuss about this. I mean, there's the whole thing that the US government and military let the terrorists into the country. They turned a blind eye to it. They knew about it. They knew it was coming. They knew it was going to happen. But I'm not going to get into that. Again, we could come back to this subject matter at a later stage and cover it in much, much more detail because it is a huge subject. But I'm just going to quickly move on to Flight 93. I don't know if many people know about this, but there was a fourth plane that was hijacked on 9/11. That was the United Airlines Flight 93. It crashed in an open field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, after the passengers apparently revolted. And out of the 4 planes hijacked on the day, Flight 93 was the only one that didn't reach its target. One conspiracy theory surrounding this event is to claim that Flight 93 was shot down by a US fighter jet. David Ray Griffin and Alex Jones have asserted that large parts of the plane, including the main body of the engine, landed miles away from the main wreckage site. So that really sort of lent towards the fact that it had been hit in flight. Parts of it had come off and then crashed. So that's why the wreckage was spread out so far. Now, in the 9/11 Commission, there is a lot of debunking this and saying that actually the furthest wreckage that was away from the main crash site was only 300 yards, not miles, as they've purported. Some of these conspiracy theorists have purported, but there is definitely proof that's been found where members of the public found parts of things like people's luggage and pieces of paper that had people's personal information on it that were on the flight, and they were 10 miles away. But again, the 9/11 Commission has said that this could be due to the fact that when the plane hit the ground, explosion goes upwards, blows a lot of stuff into high air, which then blew away on the 9-mile-per-hour wind and blew it 9 miles down the road.
So just for me and clarification in my little brain, what's the conspiracy theory versus reality on this one?
What do you mean versus the reality? Well, the plane crashed.
Yeah.
So
all right. What's the mainline thinking? Was that the passengers brought it down in a revolt?
Yeah. Well, there's several conspiracies around this one, and one of the main conspiracies is that the reason why the plane was shot down was because it's felt that the passengers on board had found out about the conspiracy, and they knew that it wasn't hijackers or terrorists, and so for that reason it had to be shot down.
Right.
There's the more other reason. I mean, the government haven't or the US military and government haven't laid claim to shooting the plane down. They said the plane crashed because the passengers overtook the terrorists, and in the confusion, the plane crashed.
Right.
Which, again, when you think about that scenario in your head, sounds a little bit far-fetched, because why necessarily does the passengers revolting against the terrorists mean that the flight would then crash? But
well, commercial airlines have got safety measures on board, so if, like, you know, a pilot goes unconscious or something, then an autopilot automatically takes over. If it like gets dangerously low in altitude, then it makes corrections on its own, doesn't it? I don't understand why it would just crash by itself.
Yeah, and there was a lot of criticism after 9/11 about the US military and about the US government and even the police force in New York, and about the slow reaction to the planes hitting, and how did all this happen, and how was our national security not strong enough? So you think if they'd shot it down, they'd want to lay claim to, hold on, at least we stopped a fourth plane by shooting it down.
Yeah.
But they said it just crashed. Now, experts, again, that are part of this committee that I was explaining, that are called the 9/11 Truth Committee or Truth Group or something. I've lost the name of them, but this group has proper experts, construction experts, scientists, main physicists as part of this group, and they've looked over the wreckage and looked over all the evidence from Flight 93, and they say that there is strong evidence that there was weaponry used on the flight and that it was shot down. So that in itself creates a lot of conspiracy to why is that not the mainstream story, and why the military not said that they shot it down.
Yeah.
So that's Flight 93. So that's another little conspiracy within 9/11. And then the last one, what are we on time? Maybe the last one I'll come back to.
I just saw Becky said she was in year 5 at school. Oh, bless.
It makes you feel old.
It does, doesn't it? Even Daniel said he was in 6th form.
Yeah, he's in 6th form. I was 26 at the time.
Yeah.
26, 27.
Yeah. I'm feeling well old.
But I think it's taken me a long time to get through these bits. So I've got another section about the Bin Laden tapes and stuff like that. But maybe we'll.
I think we could save it for another one. I think we've probably covered 9/11.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
So just out of the people that are on chat and that are watching, who think that there was some element of the U.S. government or U.S. military or even the Illuminati being behind the 9/11 incident, and it wasn't just purely Al-Qaeda and terrorists? So if you think it was a conspiracy, put yes, or if you don't think it was and it was just purely terrorists, give us a no. Let us know what you think. Over to you, Monty. And what was it? Oh yeah, the moon landing.
We knew that the Illuminati and then 9/11 was going to be pretty heavy. So we thought we'll go for something a little bit more light-hearted for the second two subjects of the moon landings and Michael Jackson. So we can end on a slightly more upbeat or more fun topic. Yes. Smiler thinks they need to call Jack Bauer. Yes. Please put in the chat whether you think it's a conspiracy theory or not. I mean, I have to say I remember watching was it Fahrenheit 9/11?
Yeah, Fahrenheit 9/11.
Is it Michael Moore? I can't say
It is Michael Moore.
Can't really stand Michael Moore, to be honest. But that documentary does make you think about what the events and how the America responded to it. It's as my son would say, because he uses this phrase for everything at the moment. He would take a look at it and would go, "It's kind of sus." That's kind of what he said for everything.
Yeah, I mean, before we discussed doing this subject matter for this program, and before I had to do the research this week, it's something that I have stepped in and out of. I've watched that documentary that you're talking about. And so that's the reason why I chose it, because I already knew a little bit of the background. I watched some stuff a long time ago about a lot of the stuff that people heard on the ground. And I'm not, as Karen says in the chat, oh no, Dan says he's sat on the fence. But I'm not sat on the fence at all. I definitely think that there was vested political interest, and this is why it was done. There's just too many things that don't add up, quite simply.
I'm with Dan. I'm a fence sitter.
Weak.
I'm just not overly sold. I mean, yeah, as Alex would say, it's kind of sus, but that doesn't mean foul play necessarily, or obviously there's foul play.
Well, I would love to come back. I would love to come back to this subject again and do a whole show about it then, because I think by the end of that show, I could prove to you, or I could change your mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's a lot more information that's a lot more technical.
Yeah. Okay. We'll deep dive into that one.
We'll come back to it in season 2.
Yeah. Okay. So the moon landings were fake. That's this next topic. And this is going to be quite a brief one, to be honest, because I chose this because I thought it would be fun, but then
it didn't turn out to be fun.
No, not really. I think because whilst everything else we've talked about so far this evening, I can get behind in some way, that I think there's some kernels of truth in a lot of it, and there are things to explore. In this, I really don't get it. I'm like, I thought I'd choose it because I'd be interested to read about it, but then I'm reading about it, I don't understand. I don't get it. But anyway, there is a large body of work out there which say the Apollo moon landings were faked by NASA and the American government. And I think it was something like in 2004, a poll was taken that found around at the time, 20% of Americans, 25% of Britons, and 28% of Russians believed that the crude moon landings were faked. That's gone down since then, although it's started to go back on the rise again. Karen believes the moon landings were fake.
Well, there's actually more of an atmosphere in the last few years because I can remember about sort of 10, 15 years ago, everybody was like, yeah, the moon landings were faked. Whereas now it seems that there's a general atmosphere that it's like, that's really ignorant of people to say that, and it's really unfair. So it kind of feels gets shifted.
I think as it moved away from the 60s and 70s and started becoming history, people were looking at the space shuttle program and thinking, well, look how far that goes. And that's supposed to be the next best thing, but we're nowhere near being able to get to the moon. So how could we have done it all the way back then, closer to like World War II than now? It doesn't make any sense. But it's a bit of a simplistic way of looking at it. And I think it's the lunar reconnaissance satellite, I forgot what it's called, that's taken high resolution images of the lunar surface and shown us all the landing sites. That's kind of given the game away, really. We can see them, it's like, but the hardcores would still say, oh yeah, but that's all fake as well. They're just showing you what you want to see.
Well, I've actually got a very different opinion, and it's likened to being sat on the fence, but it's not sat on the fence. I think there's a bit of a mixture of both.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we can cover that. So, there's a main body of work that looked at why the moon landings were possibly faked, and the main points of interest are firstly, people didn't like the look of the flag when they plant the flag in the ground, and the pictures of the well, I don't know if I've got no video. You did well. You did well with the videos and pictures, didn't you? I didn't bother with any of that. for either of mine.
Visuals. I'm all about my visuals.
I just think people want to see my beautiful face, you know.
Wait, you keep thinking that. If that makes you feel good, you keep thinking that.
No, but no,
I need a good bit of video footage.
No, I feel that I should have pulled.
Go on, get on Google as quickly as you can.
Hang on. I'm doing it. I'm there. You know.
Okay.
Here we go. So here's one such image. Let's open that in a new tab. Can we do that? Right. Hopefully this is going to work.
So guys in chat, before Mike even gets to show us some of his research and what he's found, let us know now what you're thinking. Were the moon landings faked?
No, that was the wrong one. Hang on.
Were they genuine? Or are we going to have more people sitting on that lovely fence?
Sit on the fence. Was that one? Oh, there we go. So there's your typical picture of a flag being planted during the moon landings.
And what was it? Was it because of the wind?
Yeah, because it looked like it was flapping in the wind, and
there shouldn't be any wind, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they are in a vacuum in space. There is no atmosphere on the moon at all. Well, at least trace amounts. That basically there is none.
Comfortable on the fence. Alrighty.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, and there is like film footage of them rustling with the flag and the flag flapping about. But it's plain to see there are multiple shots of like this shot of the. This was actually, I think, from Apollo 11. Of this, and I think it's actually Buzz Aldrin actually in that suit, as he's walking around, you can see that flag stays like that, like rock solid. It does not move an inch, not a millimeter. But it's more that it's the tension between. It has a pole in the top of it, across the top of it, and it's the tension of the material between the main shaft of the mast and the pole, the arm going across the top, that creates that tension. And as it's being pulled across by force, what made it look like it was flapping, but not anything to do with the air, or supposing.
Yeah, I think I'm right if I read somewhere that they'd already thought about the fact that there was no wind, so that's the reason why they put the pole in the top, because they realized that if they didn't do anything to hold up the flag, all it would do was just droop down.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this photograph, and I don't know if you would cover it, but the shadow of the pole is going against the direction of all the rest of the shadows in the photograph.
No, it's not.
Well, because the shadow would send the light source is coming from the flag side of the astronaut, because the shadow of it behind his feet is going that direction. The shadow of the pod is going that direction as well, whereas the shadow of the flagpole is going the other direction.
Where can you see? I can't see any flag shadow.
So just on the floor, is that not the shadow of the
flagpole?
No,
it's not the shadow of the flagpole. No.
Maybe that's the shadow of another.
No, it's just a shadow. I think there's some like bumps in the ground where they've been planting their feet quite heavily to plant the flagpole into the ground. They've kicked up some little mounds of moon dust, and that moon dust has created like shadows. But that's the first one. That's the first thing that they take issue with. The next one is shadows. It's shadow related, and I don't know if I actually got a picture. I have got a picture of this, I think, somewhere. So in various images, they claim that shadows head in multiple directions, so that oh look, I've just come up with this something even better than what I had before. Oh, I should have put this up earlier. Bear with me a minute. I've got to show you this now. I've found it. I've got to share. I've got to show you. Hang on a sec. There you go. That's like shows us quick couple of frame animation of Buzz moving in his suit, and you can see the flag.
Is not moving.
The flag is just it is as it is. It'll stay like that. Yeah. The other thing was somewhere here I saw where was the image? Oh, it might have been a different website actually. Yeah, wasn't there at all. Anyway, basically that there's pictures where as you say, shadows go in different directions, so that they say that can only happen if there's multiple light sources, where on the moon all they had was at that time the sun. But
I think science has caught up with that whole thing, hasn't it?
Yeah, I can't find the picture of it actually. Yeah, never mind. But what it is, it's like if you look, if you're stood on a road, say in an Arizona desert, you know, and the road goes off into the distance, one side of the road, the side of the road heads, you know, from right to left, or left to right, and the other side of the road heads from right to left. So as perspective, as things go away from you, the distance between those two straight lines gets, from your perspective, smaller. So they said, you know, how can well, that's what it is. You're looking at perspective of shadows over distance, and when the sun's low down on the horizon, the shadows on the moon's surface are actually longer than what the camera kind of foreshortens them. So it looks like you've got shadows that are quite close, that are heading in different directions, but what you're seeing is distance of perspective being shortened by the camera. Anyway, I tried to describe that without having the image on hand, because I'm doing a shoddy job. The other thing is the crosshairs. So there's a lot of images where the crosshairs, their images are covered in little crosses, and it looks like some of the things in the image are behind the crosshairs. So they say, well, those things, like they sent a robot up there to take some images of the lunar landscape, and then they've just photoshopped some of their equipment and things onto the images, which was quite a popular that took off when the people noticed that one. But it turned out that it only appeared in front of like white objects. I'll just show you one example if I can. Right, it's not a very good one, but this is the sort of thing we're talking about. So here we have a piece of equipment. You can see the crosshair, and the crosshair seems to go behind the piece of equipment that's left on the lunar surface there. But what it is actually is these crosshairs are all semi-transparent, and the contrast, the whiteness of the object just whitens out the crosshair. So it is there, but you just can't see it in these low resolution images. This one in particular was, how do I get back out of this? Oh, there you go. That image in particular has been reprocessed in like HD, and then you can see the line. That's completely not someone from NASA just drawing that in with a pencil. That's what it looks like to me. It's like, no, it's really there. Look, here it is. I've just drawn a line on the photo. But yeah. But that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be just contrast of these semi-transparent crosshairs.
It's interesting now that like technology has allowed them to, bring, they wouldn't have been able to do that sort of 20 years ago and convert that photograph into HD, which would allow them to debunk the debunkers.
Yeah, that's right. Another one was people didn't believe that it looked real because none of the photos that come back had stars in the background. So the astronauts are walking across a bright surface, and the sky is just completely black with no stars or anything in it, and it just that makes it look fake, But if anybody's got a camera and tried looking up to the sky with it,
you need a special shutter speed.
You need a long exposure.
And we have that these days. We could do that, but back then they didn't have that, and it's certainly not one that they could take on the flight with them.
They did have one on one of the missions. They did have a
later
mission.
Not when they did the first one.
Yeah, and there is a famous picture of the Earth whilst they were looking back at Earth while they were on the way to the moon that they took with a long exposure, and so that was another one of those. That was another one, and lastly, the main point of contention was radiation. So getting through the what they call the Van Allen belts. Which are the belts of radiation that surround the Earth, that make up our magnetosphere. So there's this the melted iron core in the Earth generates a magnetic shield around the Earth which protects us from the violent radiation from the sun. But it makes that radiation encircle the Earth like a bow wave of a ship traveling through an ocean.
Like a shield.
Like a shield. Yeah, we've got a radiation shield. And it's quite intense at certain points. There's like two main points, two belts that go around the planet where this radiation is more intense. And the conspiracy theorists would say that the astronauts would have been fried like being in a microwave if they'd actually gone through those areas of radiation. But I mean, the people that went and NASA tell us that that's not the case, and it's not ideal. The radiation they did get a lot. I mean, the outside of the spacecraft was quite thin. It was a thin sheet of aluminium that made out the outer skin of the spacecraft, and that gave them some protection with their suits, but. They would have received quite a heavy dose of radiation as they went through those belts, and they were studied after they come back to Earth to see what effect that, because they really didn't know, what effect that would have on them in the long term. So yeah, the Van Allen belts. So those were the main points of contention, really, with the moon landing.
What was the explanation around how they got past that issue?
They didn't. The conspiracy theorists say they shouldn't have been able to go through those belts and survive, and basically NASA say, yeah, you can. It's not ideal, but it's one of those sort of like there is no explanation about it. It does exist, but it's not as bad as what people think it is. It's like having 100 X-rays at once,
So after the initial Apollo mission that landed on the moon, how many people have landed on the moon since?
Something like 26.
So
something like that.
There was quite a few Apollo missions that landed on the moon on the run up to Apollo 13, because Apollo 13 was meant to land on the moon but didn't. And then was it after Apollo 13 or 14 that the Apollo program was scrapped, or did it go on for a little bit longer after that?
I don't know. I'm going to have to look it up now. You're asking me. How many missions? There we go. There was about your movie. It went up to 15. Apollo 15 is with the moon. Is with the moon buggy. The famous moon buggy.
Yeah.
Apollo 16 also had a moon buggy. Apollo 17. Apollo 17 was the last one.
Smiler and Daniel are both saying that 12.
12. All right, yeah, I got that wrong. 12
landed on the move.
12 people, and the last one was Apollo 17 on the December 1972.
Yeah, it's just my feelings are, now you've obviously talked about some of the photographs, like the infamous flag one, etc., and explained that away, but there's actually quite a large catalogue of photos, apparently, from not just the original mission to the moon, but the subsequent ones that followed. And there's some of the photographs that don't stand up to scrutiny, as well as the ones that you've pointed out tonight, and some of the other ones as well. And I just think my feeling on it is that I don't contest that they went to the moon and they landed on the moon, but because if you think back to how important the whole moon landing was in terms of the political race that was going on with Russia, and how important that was to the Americans to beat them in that, and sat right smack bang in the middle of the Cold War. And I think that there was an element where the Apollo missions and subsequent NASA missions afterwards have been plagued with issues, faults like Apollo 13, and I think that there was elements of equipment failure that didn't allow them to take all of the stuff that they wanted to take in the way that they wanted to take it. And I think that they filled some of it out with some photos that weren't necessarily genuine, and that's come back to bite them in the ass. Because I definitely be interested to come back to it, because I can remember looking into it a few years ago, and there was quite a few photographs that you can really scrutinize them quite well. But I don't contest that they didn't land on the moon. I just think that they filled it out a little bit with.
I think they jazzed it up with some.
Jazzed it up because it was so important that it was such an important thing at that time that they win that race, and that they fill the American public with trust that this had happened, and this was real, and they were amazing at what they did. And so I just think that they. And that came back to bite them.
The conspiracy theorists actually take it one step further, and there is one. This was one of the last ones I was going to cover. Was they got Stanley Kubrick of 2001: A Space Odyssey fame to produce a lot of the shots for them, because 2001: A Space Odyssey was in production at the same time as Apollo 11. So the sound stages for that were all set up, and they were doing the filming of the finding the monolith on the moon in a crater around the same time. So people were saying that NASA people saw that and got him involved in curating and making sure those shots happened.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. If you've landed on the moon and they took snap, and they get back and expose them, and 15 of them came out really badly and didn't work because of an issue or a problem that they didn't think about, they're going to go, oh my God, no, but this is what happened, and let's just reconstruct it and film it and then patch it into the other photos that did come through. And I just think there was some of that going on. But the crazy conspiracy theorists would say that there was some editing of pictures and photos because of what they saw when they were up on the moon landings that had to be hidden and constricted, not to kind of give away some of the secrets. And that's another whole sort of side story. And when you think about things that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong have said in the last few years, that would add to that. That could be another reason as to why some of the photos were tweaked. And
Maybe
that tweaking has led to suspicion. But I definitely think they landed on the moon.
Okay, well, maybe we'll cover that one in another episode.
Yeah.
Deep dive into that.
Yeah.
Yes, Karen, I remember watching the solar eclipse as well on the moors in Plymouth. Yeah, at that time in the summer of 1999. It was around the same time I met my lovely wife, Smiler Rainbow, there. Yes. Yeah. So, on to our final conspiracy theory of the evening. Michael Jackson is not dead.
Dead. Yeah, it's this is one that I firmly, it's the truth. I believe in it. Just thought we'd end the program with something that's a little bit more light-hearted. But actually, you put your head to face or head to hand. But actually, there's some bits that come up in this that do allow you to sort of.
Hey, we don't make any assumptions here on the Monte Zone. We are open to all evidence and all modes of thought. So,
Okay, so let's get into it then.
Let's get into it.
So there's a lot of conspiracies around Michael Jackson. Not, one of them being that he was murdered, and that in itself has had to be investigated. And then obviously the one that we're going to talk about this evening, where Michael Jackson supposedly faked his own death. And there's a lot of people that believe that happened because of the financial situation, the pressure and the stress that he was under. He died around the time that he was doing his O2 show, where he was going to have to do something like 64 shows back to back just to be able to make the producers of that event were pushing him harder and harder to add more and more dates. And you've got to remember, he was in his early 50s. Early 50s at this point. So, that was putting him under a lot of pressure. He was medically not very well. He had all these financial issues. Anyway, so there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that believe that they feel that Michael Jackson faked his own death, and there's been bits that have popped up to kind of prove that. Now, the first thing that we're going to start with this evening is a theory that's we're going to call Dave. And to give you a little bit of background about Dave, Dave was so basically there was a boy called David Rothenberg who was pictured with Michael Jackson when he was 8 years old. David Rothenberg was a victim of violence from his father, who had poured chemicals over him, so he's a very badly burnt individual. And there are documented pictures of Michael Jackson with David Rothenberg as a boy. He brought him to Netherlands, and don't bring it up just yet.
No, I was just getting it ready.
Okay, cool. And he brought him to Netherlands, supported his family, and became a friend of Dave's for all of Dave's life. And when Michael Jackson died, on the days that followed, Larry King did a special program all about the death of Michael Jackson, and one of the guests on the show was Dave Rothenberg, obviously grown up now as a grown man. But on this show, instead of calling himself Dave Rothenberg, he called himself Dave.
Yeah.
So and the big theory about this one is that when you see Dave on Larry King and talking, when he's talking, he sounds very much like Michael Jackson. And also, if you go back to the pictures of David Rothenberg as a boy when he was with Michael Jackson, he had blue eyes, whereas on Larry King, Dave has brown eyes, which is the same as Michael Jackson. So the belief is that it's actually Michael Jackson in a prosthetic outfit.
Oh, I didn't realize that was what this was about.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Now it's going to be interesting to watch, right?
Right, okay.
So let's roll that VT. This is Dave on Larry King being interviewed, talking about the death of Michael Jackson.
Before we go to that, I just want to address Daniel's chat. He said Michael Jackson's not dead. He's just with Elvis and Tupac. Probably sunning on Alpha Centauri or something like that. And Karen chips in and goes, like, it's bad. And Becky says, oh, beat it.
And then Smiler's coming with, you want to be starting something?
Oh, very good. Anyway, right. Yes.
Joining us now here in Los Angeles, Miko Brando, who was with us
R.I.P. Larry
every
King.
night after this untimely passing. Longtime Michael Jackson friend attending the funeral. And Dave, yes, that's his name, Dave. He was David Rothenberg. He was set on fire in 1983, suffered, as you can see, terrible scars. Michael Jackson befriended him and paid for a lot of his surgeries. Dave is also attending the burial. Why Dave?
Well, to liberate myself from the confines of my father's criminality.
He caused the fire?
Yeah. He is a criminal, and he caused all this. To free myself of his name and his legacy, I decided to become my own person through changing my name.
We'll find out how Michael helped you, but Miko, is that a typical story of Michael helping people?
Is that enough?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's enough.
Would hear about stories of.
So, I mean, you know, I don't know how many of our viewers have sort of seen in-depth interviews with Michael Jackson talking. I mean, I didn't say at the top of this section, but I've been the hugest Michael Jackson fan all my life, and I've watched a lot of interview footage of him even before the days of Bad. I've seen interviews that go back as far as the Thriller time, some of them that weren't necessarily published at the time but were published later, and the voice does sound very similar to Michael Jackson's inflections and how Michael Jackson speaks, especially when he's happy and he's comfortable. But yeah, the main thing on this theory is that there's a lot of photographs of Dave Rothenberg with Michael Jackson when they were younger, and he had blue eyes, and on Larry King he had brown eyes. Could have just been the camera light in the studio. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just one theory of so you can explore this more yourselves, guys, by just putting Dave into Google, and a whole plethora of stuff about Dave will come up. But yeah,
I think he was
theory.
Probably such a massive Michael Jackson fan as a child like you that he's developed some of his inflections and
possibly. Yeah, very, very true. So the next thing on our journey on the conspiracy theory of Michael Jackson being alive, unfortunately, we were having a chat off air. Mark pointed out that he couldn't use the video footage that I shared with him because it actually had a song by Janet Jackson in the video footage, which copyrighted on a live stream would create problems and we'd probably be shut down. So unfortunately can't use the video. What I can do is tell you about it. So on October 3rd, 2015, Janet Jackson released an album called Unbreakable. She released the album to apparently vent a lot of stuff, a lot of demons that she had about her family and about her brother's death, Michael Jackson. And on one of the tracks on the album called Great Forever, there's a section of the song, and experts have had a look into this and conspiracy theorists, and you can go online and we'll put the link to the video later on when we post this video that you guys can watch it. You do have to, on the video that we're going to put the link to, you do have to fast forward to about 4 minutes 45 to get to the bit where there's the song. I've had a listen to it, and apparently it's in the chorus of the song, and you can hear Michael Jackson singing, and then you can hear Janet Jackson singing. Obviously their voices have always been very, very similar anyway. I didn't hear it myself, but apparently in the background you can hear a backing vocal where one of them screams Michael Jackson is still alive. So their conspiracy theorists believe that was a plant by them to sort of give more tease to the fact that it was Michael Jackson's vocal. I've listened to it myself as a Michael Jackson fan. It is MJ's voice on it. It's not. I can tell when Janet Jackson comes in, and I can tell when it's Michael Jackson. However, because it was recorded in 2015, I don't believe that proves that he was alive. What I do think is that, often is the way with recording artists. They have a lot of material that they were rehearsing on, practicing. They put it down as demos. They don't ever record it. I do believe that in some way, Janet Jackson had either something that she had been doing with her brother before he died, either in one of her studios or in his studio. It was a demo, and what she's done is she's shaped the song around the few lines that she had of him singing it, and she's blended it into the song. So I do believe it's MJ's voice, but I don't believe it kind of proves that he was alive in 2015 and recording with his sister. But
it's like Prince. It's like Prince has a massive body of work, doesn't he? That he produced, that's never been produced. It's never been released.
They were able to release about, I think, 2 or 3 albums of Tupac's after he died. Of material that he had that then producers were able to fuse together, put with other stuff, which, I'm not necessarily, I agree with that, but I guess it depends who's got the rights and who's making the decisions behind it and what intention they're doing of it. Because there's, again, a lot of horrible stuff around Michael Jackson's catalogue and who's got the rights to that and what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
But no, my opinion of this, and I would urge you guys to go out and listen to, is Janet Jackson from the album Unbreakable, the song Great Forever, and you get to the chorus, and I would just go, yeah, it is Michael Jackson. There's no doubt in I know Michael Jackson's voice, and I know the difference between him and Janet Jackson, and I can tell you exactly when Janet Jackson is singing and when it's Michael Jackson's vocal, but it is his vocal.
Wasn't there a funny conspiracy theory when Janet Jackson became a thing, like hit the big time, that actually
that's why they did the song Scream together.
It was Michael in disguise, because maybe he just wanted to try out being a woman, because they thought she was so much like Michael, and they never were seen in public together, and it was like, they had to do a song together in the end to just squash those theories. Right, we got another one now, G. Another. So this is, I think this is after show party or backstage at an Emmy Awards party.
Yeah, is this the
Teddy Perkins one?
The Teddy Perkins. So, give a bit of background to Teddy Perkins. Teddy Perkins is a character that appeared in, I believe, a US TV program called Atlanta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guest starred in a couple of series. This program starred Danny Glover, who also goes by the name. He's a music artist as well. I can't remember what his music name is. If you know it, put it in chat. Please help me out.
Baby Gambino.
Oh yeah,
something Gambino or.
Yeah, you're on the right tracks. Anyway, he's in this program as an actor, obviously Danny Glover. And so there's 2 theories around Teddy Perkins. So Teddy Perkins appeared in the audience at one of the Grammys, and Danny Glover was supposed to be at the Grammys. He didn't walk the red carpet, but apparently he's got some sort of thing about doing against red carpets and doing the red carpet. But anyway, he didn't walk the red carpet, so people presumed that he wasn't at the award ceremony. Later on in the show, after Teddy Perkins had gone missing, all of a sudden Danny Glover appeared in areas of the Grammys, and people were like, well, how did he come in, etc. So there's a theory that it was Danny Glover behind the costume of Teddy Perkins, but there's also a theory that it's actually Michael Jackson.
So he does Danny Glover in Atlanta. It is him in whiteface, isn't it? In a rubber mask of a white
prosthetic
guy.
Costume.
Prosthetic.
Which again, it's really interesting to point out that Michael Jackson, in his lifetime while he was alive, was a real fan of.
He used to do that a lot. Yeah.
For the Disney films, he dressed up as a white man, very, very convincing. And we're going to be talking about that in a little bit later when we come to. I forgot his name, Dr. Farsh, but
yeah, Danny Glover did the "This Is America" song, and he was also in Solo. He played what's his name?
Yeah, he's a very, very talented guy. I really do like him. He was also in was it not Apollo 13? the other one, Mars, The Martian.
Oh yeah, The
He was in
Martian. Yeah.
So this video footage that we're going to show you, so the reason why this other theory came out that it wasn't Danny Glover and it was Michael Jackson in the costume is because after the Grammys, a couple of members of the public caught hold of Teddy Perkins because he appeared again, and we're talking to him, and he says something on camera which it kind of sparked off the conspiracy. So we'll just watch it.
Oh my God! Oh my, the best episode of television all year. Oh my God! It's Teddy Perkins! Holy shit! Hello? Oh my God! I'm glad you're alive. I was a little worried. I thought it was a documentary. They say kill me, but I did not die. I'm still alive. Oh my God! You're my favorite ever. Yeah, best episode of television all year. Thank you.
So that's pretty much it. But he sort of says, I did not die. And this sort of sparked off a whole bunch of conspiracies that it's Michael Jackson and he's trying to give away clues that he's not dead. So
it's pretty creepy, that rubber mask though.
It's
and very
it
creepy.
does feel and look a little bit like him as well, especially in the eyes and stuff. And then when he starts talking as well, it sounds a little bit like Michael Jackson. I actually haven't watched Teddy Perkins' appearance within the program Atlanta, and it'd be interesting to watch that to see if the voice is similar, because I don't know if that is part of the element that sparked it off as well, is that the actor who plays Teddy Perkins or was in the costume on the Atlanta didn't sound like that. So it'd be interesting for me to do a little bit of extra research and go and find those programs and watch it.
Yeah.
So lastly, just to wrap up, now this is the one that for me actually, I don't know, it gives me a little bit of the heebie-jeebies. So the last thing that has started off the conspiracy theorists on Michael Jackson being alive is that when Michael Jackson was alive, he had a team of people that worked with him, team of doctors, and there was a Dr. Alamorad Fashian, I can't pronounce it, who was one of Michael Jackson's doctors and a good friend of him. And there's a lot of photographs of the two of them together whilst Michael Jackson was alive. And there's these pictures that you can see of Dr. Farsh, as I'm going to call him to shorten it, where he's sort of in his early 30s and he looks one way, and then apparently now he looks completely different, and that's part of the conspiracy. He's not the doctor that was taken to trial for the murder. That was Conrad Murray, so don't confuse it with that. Something that's led fuel to the fire on this particular theory is that Dr. Farsh was recently, not recently, it was about 3 or 4 years ago, he was photographed trying to sneak on to a yacht which had Prince Jr. on it, who's Michael Jackson's son, biological son. And Dr. Farsh was sneaking onto this yacht and was photographed by Paps, hanging out with him for a couple of days and spending time with him and being very close with him. And it's around this time period that a lot of photographs of this Dr. Farsh were taken, and some of his features have significantly changed. Namely, some of the main features are his hands. His hands were had gone from being like a normal thick man's hands to a very thin, feminine looking hands, very much like Michael Jackson's hands. Other features on his face had changed. And just the whole fact that people were asking Prince Jr. about Dr. Farsh and his relationship with him, and he denied that he had any relationship with him. So it was all very cloak and dagger, this Dr. Farsh appearing on this yacht and spending some time with Prince Jr. But I shared a video with Monte, which kind of it's just one of these videos that are online that shows some of the curiosities around this Dr. Farsh and how now he looks very different than when he did earlier on in life, and a lot of people feel that this is Michael Jackson in a costume, very much likened to one that he appeared in one of the Disney films that he did.
Say when on this, because
I can't remember if I had a time.
Hang on, I've got the wrong.
No, this is it.
No, it's not. This is part 2, I think.
No, that's fine. It was part 2 that I shared with you.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's all right.
So I'll try and point out where they show the earlier photos of Dr. Farsh when he was alive. See how the hands, they're making comparisons to earlier pictures with his hands. Do you want to just pause that one back there? The one that had the 3 sets of eyes on it? Just for a bit of fun.
Oh, I don't know where we were.
There.
That one?
Yeah. So the picture at the top is Dr. Farsh at a younger age, and the picture at the bottom is Michael Jackson, and the eyes are what is a picture of what's meant to be Dr. Farsh now, and the eyes. But again, people in Hollywood around America, have a lot of plastic surgery. Whether he was a friend of Michael Jackson, he's a doctor. Whether he's had plastic surgery, which has changed some of his looks, but that's one of the other things that's led fuel to the fire, and that's why they're doing the comparison pictures and saying it's more like Michael Jackson's eyes now than it was the original Dr. Farsh eyes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to go back just to the beginning part a minute, because I watched this earlier, but just because it shows what the doctor looked like a little while ago and how he's considerably changed. So that's how he looks. Yeah. I think he looks a little bit like that comedian. What's he called? The man with 2 brains. He was in that film. I can't remember his name.
But he's been caught on camera doing a lot of things like making Michael Jackson poses like that. Some of his outfits have changed to being like Michael Jackson. But I think the biggest thing that fuels the fire on this conspiracy is the number of meetings that he's had with Prince Jr. that have been a bit cloak and dagger.
Well, he was friends with Michael, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you see a picture earlier on with
Steve Martin. Thank you, Maz. Yeah, I think he looks less like Michael Jackson, more like Steve Martin. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah, so that's the last of my one, but this is the one that I don't know if I was to believe any of them. That there's a couple of oddities about that one that you're like, that's a bit curious, but generally, that's it for my my compilation of research on Michael Jackson is still alive.
But that guy is a practicing doctor in Florida.
Yeah.
So unless Michael Jackson's also done a doctor's degree,
well, you never know. He had a good 5-6 years.
He had a good practice at it.
Death and coming out back on the scene.
He knew a lot about medicating.
Yeah. Okay, let's not go with any horrible.
No, but yeah.
Hey, Mazza, evening.
Evening, Mazza and Bob. Thank you for joining.
I liked all the funny jokes. I mean, Smiler, I just can't stop loving you.
oh dear.
Oh, that was bad.
Yeah. Did anybody say about it being a thriller? Probably someone in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was it, really. That was all she wrote on the conspiracy theory front.
Well, we haven't covered. We could come back to conspiracy theories, and there's still a lot of conspiracy theories out there. So we can keep coming back.
And we can definitely deep dive into some of these, the whole New World Order and 9/11. There's a lot around that, around the control of the stock markets, the price of oil, there's lots to talk about. If we got into that subject in depth.
Yeah, I mean, Smiler, I just think it's the way you make me feel.
Stop it. Yeah, but it was fun. It was fun looking at those. And next up, smooth operator. Yeah.
So next episode, are we going to cover Bigfoot or ghosts and hauntings?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I think the original plan
was Bigfoot, wasn't it? Actually, I said ghosts earlier, didn't I? And
you did.
The plan was Bigfoot, wasn't it?
But we can go either way. Oh, decisions. Live on air as well.
I know, you're making me decide now.
You can hear I'm thinking. You can smell it. I can smell it from here.
No, now you said Bigfoot, I'm thinking we'll go with our original plan. And I know
Are you happy with that, Dan? Is Dan still in chat and can give us the thumbs up?
I don't know if Dan's still around, but I know that it was something he was covering on his channel at the moment, and it was so it's something that's going to be topical for him in what he's covering. So I think that's why it made me thought, oh yeah, that's what we said, wasn't it?
And we might possibly, can't guarantee it, but we might be able to get a second special guest as well.
For Bigfooties.
A bit of a fanatic on or a bit
Sasquatch
on the whole Bigfoot and Sasquatch, yeah.
Oh, exciting.
But I can't guarantee that. Watch this space and I'll update it. So make sure you're following us on the Monte Zone Facebook page, and that's where I'll update if we're going to have that second special guest, as well as Daniel joining us on the next Monte Zone. Daniel's just put, I'm happy with that. I'm still researching the Bigfoot subject for my series.
Cool.
For him.
Yeah,
so let's do it, and we can tie it in well with what he's doing on his channel, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, cool.
All right. Well, that's the next one planned in a couple of weeks' time. As you say, keep an eye on the Facebook site for more details on that as we come along.
He's just said he can get a second guest.
Oh, so. Well, maybe we'll have 5. Who knows? It'll be a whole committee.
No, his is probably the
it's the same.
I was talking about. So
okay.
4. I don't think any more heads will fit on the screen, will there?
Yeah, you can have up to 10.
Oh gosh, but that would make me really small, and I don't want that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the next one, and just to let you know, coming up over the next week on the Monteban channel and Monteban Live tomorrow. If anybody wants to watch me, not tomorrow, Sunday. If anybody wants to watch me suffer Sunday afternoon, I'm going to be playing Donkey Kong again on the Monteban channel, and we're getting into sort of the next sort of set of levels now where it gets a lot harder. So if you want to see me tear my hair out and have a mental breakdown, Sunday afternoon on the Monteban channel, Donkey Kong. Then Monday evening on Monteban Live, we've got the next Diet Podcast. The Diet Podcast for February, where we'll be watching myself and Mazin McBob try to take on one of KD Fitness's routines, one of his videos.
I just hope you're not planning on doing one of the high intensity ones. I don't want to see you having a heart attack or anything.
Yeah, it's going to get messy. Basically, it's.
But it'll make for great viewing, so that's what's important, really.
That's the plan. And if I do pass out in front of camera, then
great footage.
It's gonna make it's gonna make me famous. So there you go.
I mean, if it wasn't for lockdown, I'd really want to be there filming it.
Yeah, I think I'll just have a camera on a stand. I don't think I want anyone there. Yes, so that'll be Monday evening. The Diet Podcast with me and Mazin McBob. And then, of course, next Wednesday, we've got the TNG review show. So, yeah, a lot going on the channel over the next week.
Yay. I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who's joined us this evening. Been really fun on chat. Loved all the jokes. Try and, if you can, for next Monty Zone, get some of your friends on as well to have a little bit more banter between you and them. It should be a pretty fun, light episode with it being about Bigfoot and Sasquatch, but there's some serious subject matter around it as well. I've heavily been into Bigfoot for the last 2 years, so I feel pretty already like I've got a head start getting ready for this this next show.
And I am looking forward to being educated. That's what this is all about for me. Education. Love it.
That's what you need.
That's what I need.
Oh, no, it's dedication. That's
if you want to be
education. Well, let's change it. Let's change it to education. That's what you need.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to be a record breaker, but yeah. Karen, when am I going to be doing the flaming hot chicken wings? Soon. Honestly, I promise soon. I still haven't quite got around to getting the studio ready. But with Smiler's help this weekend, we'll get it done. We will get it done. So yeah, hopefully we'll be filming that soon. Yes. So, yes, thank you, chat. Thank you for being really involved, and we've really enjoyed seeing your contribution this evening. It's been really good fun. So thank you for joining, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time on the next Monty Zone.
See you later.
Cheers.